Who are you really talking to when you verify your digital ID? I've recently found out that in order to sell a house in the United Kingdom, you now need to do a digital verification. What does that mean? What it means is handing over data. Just one piece of that data could open you up to levels of fraud you probably couldn't even get your head around, because what you have to give them is your full name, including middle names if you have them, your full address, your postcode, and this is all happening over the phone, your postcode, your bank details, including the 3-digit code, your passport number, including the code right at the end after the main passport number, and a real-time photograph where they send you a link to an app and you line your face up in the middle and it snaps the picture and it takes that, and that's the picture from your passport where you've just given them all of the details. Now, I'm not saying the companies that are doing this are not legit. I'm sure they are. Well, I'd like to hope and think they are. What I'm saying is, because this is the way it always happens, because when people think about cybercrime, the image that is portrayed is often people in some sort of warehouse or makeshift call centre, and there's just loads of banks of people on the phone making these calls and scamming the heck out of the public. And there's a version of it, which I'm not going to name any of the publications, but some of the publications that you might know in the United States mainly, they have people on the inside who will, for the right price, give them some information. They'll, drop a little hint when a particular celebrity is in hospital, or somehow they get hold of their medical records or their autopsy report or whatever it is. So oftentimes the way it also happens is that within a legitimate company, there are people working there who are not legit, but they're taking these calls. So even when they say to you, oh, give me the 3-digit code, but I'll turn off the recording for this part of the call. Even if they do turn off the recording for that part of the call, and they would if they're being monitored in a call centre, what stops them writing it down? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And then the way that it sometimes works, because when someone gets hold of your details, of course, they are worth a lot of money on the dark web, and this kind of data is gold. It's like gold. But what also happens with the ones who aren't set up as a cyber criminal network, what they'll typically do is they'll wait for a little bit so that you're not making the association between having had that call, handed over literally everything about you. They could open an account, they could shop, they could do everything with that data right there. Your address. Oh yeah, you're giving your date of birth as well. But if you did, and the passport expiry, they've got everything they need. Number one, to just steal from you or to wheedle their way into accounts, because, once you've got that kind of data, a lot is possible. But they could also set things up on your behalf because now they've got all of that data that they can verify who you are. It's just insane when you really allow yourself to think about it. Absolutely insane. So yeah, that's the state of play. Now, if somebody says, no, I'm not doing that, what does that mean? You can't sell your home. It's as simple as that. Because I've still got people on my thread, on my social media page, saying, yes, but it's voluntary and it doesn't mean what you say. And I said, look, it's coming in through the back door. They're finding other ways to bring it in such that it could remain voluntary. However, if you're not consenting, then gradually you are shut out of society. And what you are able to do is greatly diminished. And you get further and further and further boxed in. One example I can give you in recent memory is when the COVID passes came in and they were voluntary. Oh, would you like one of these? It's your choice. Almost in the blink of an eye, you couldn't work without one. You couldn't travel without one. You couldn't go out socially without one. Even when lockdown was lifted, you couldn't go to the theatre A friend had invited me to the Royal Albert Hall. They were insisted on them. Another friend, we go to the Ideal Home Show. They were insisting on them. Nightclubs for young people, they were insisting on them. Certain restaurants, they were insisting on them. Didn't stay in a hotel in that time, so I can't speak for that. But I know that when people were abroad, if they didn't have one, they had to go into quarantine for at least 2 weeks. They were paying for that extra 2 weeks, by the way, which probably just ate up all of their holiday. So you might want to kid yourself that all this is just voluntary. Mark my words. It's going to keep coming and coming and coming and coming, because our Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, has already said very, very clearly, no digital ID, no job. Now, people have said, oh, they've gone back on that. They're not going to enforce that. But when you apply for a job and your employer says, well, we need to do this digital ID verification, congratulations, you've got the job. What are you going to do? If you need a job, you're going to do the verification. It's the same thing. And I said this right from day one. The government, if they can't push it through themselves, what they're going to do is they're going to devolve responsibility to corporations. And if those corporations don't toe the line, number one, they're going to be facing massive fines. Those fines are already out in the public domain. You can go and look them up. So the companies now find themselves acting illegally if they don't enforce this on behalf of the government. So the government are now not going to do it themselves. They're going to devolve that down to corporations, and the corporations will devolve that down to you, the public. So you can play with linguistics as much as you want, mandatory, not mandated, mandated, not mandated, voluntary, not voluntary. Play around with those as much as you want. Right now, in real time, today is the 10th of March, 2026. If this is happening to sell a home, are you really going to tell me it's not going to happen when you apply for a job? Come on now. Come on. Oh, and by the way, you're also going to have to pay for this. Now, at the moment, as it stands on Tuesday, the 10th of March, 2026, it's £45 here in the UK. So a couple of things are going to happen, because I'm suspecting that if you had to do this somewhere else and it was a different company, they're going to say, well, you didn't verify with us, so we want our money too, please. It could be that you say, oh, well, I've already done it over here and that's fine. But what happens is then once people start going, well, hold on, I just paid £45 over here and now you want 37 and now you want 52 and now da-da-da-da. That's when you're going to have people begging for the one login government digital ID, because normally how it happens, they create a problem. And when I say they, I mean the establishment, governments, their three-letter agencies, etc. They create a problem. People then realise the problem, and then people start crying out for the solution. So I'm saying now they're charging people £45 to do this. It could be that every time you have to do it somewhere else, a similar amount of money is laid out. Eventually, and understandably, people will go, well, hold on, what's happening here? And then the government can swoop in wearing their dastardly cape and say, well, hey, we've offered you this solution, we've got this solution, and everyone will be begging for the one login, as it's called here in the UK, digital ID centralised system. However, the problem remains the same. When you've got this kind of data and information about you in the hands of one person or in one portal, all it takes is one data breach to put all of that information in the dark web and all of that information into the hands of nefarious actors. And cybercrime is now one of the biggest forms of crime in the world, understandably, because we're living in a digital world. And what we are doing in terms of the way we're being mind controlled and coerced into this is we're feeding that machine and making it so easy for them. Because previously, when somebody broke into, let's say, the Marks and Spencer system, they didn't have your passport details. On this occasion with the breach, Marks and Spencer's, this is a store in the UK, Marks and Spencer said they didn't get card details. However, your address, let's say, and your name might have been exposed. And that's because Marks and Spencers don't have your passport details. So there are things that are out in the public domain. Of course there are. If you're watching this on social media, then you've given them your name and you've given them an email address, you've given them probably a date of birth. Not everybody is doing stuff online, so they don't have your card details, they don't have your passport details, they don't have your 3-digit CSV code. So if they got into that, there's a certain amount they could do, but not everything. And with the way things are emerging now, these cyber criminals can do everything and get everything under the guise of making our life easier. Trust me when I tell you, if you've been scammed or hacked, there's nothing easy about that. It feels personally violating. So there we have it. I will leave it here for today. Another dipping the toe in the water of mind control and how people are coerced into things and even made to think that it's their own idea. So a little bit of a mindset minute, food for thought for those of you I haven't met before. I am Marilyn Devonish, the Neuro Success Coach, Rapid Transformation Specialist and Futurist. Over and out. And thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next episode.